Hello, my name is Evie and welcome back to Overwatch Every Day. Today was a special video for you guys. I was doing some live VOD reviews for some viewers on stream yesterday, and I ran into two VODs that had identical concepts, except they were on completely different heroes. So starting out, we're going to be taking a look at a Wrecking Ball VOD review, and then we go into a Soldier VOD later, though we discuss the same topic, and I explain how the same concept applies to various different roles and heroes, and it's really, really cool. So, hope you guys enjoy the video, and let's get into it. Really quickly, I have two things to say. I'm gonna start on Hollywood. And why you probably feel like, or why you've been like, if you play primarily Wrecking Ball, this is going to explain why you've had sort of such drastic sort of rank changes. Is because probably you end up forgetting about this one topic. And this is something that is very, very, very close to my heart. A little bit of background. I struggled with this exact thing, and I still do. Very frequently on Wrecking Ball. I usually have to have a queue session to get it out of my system. I used to go from like 4,400, 4,500 in Overwatch 1 all the way down to like 3,600. I would be losing almost 1,000 SR in like a day, in like a single day. And then I would remember this one thing and I'd climb it all back instantly on Wrecking Ball. Basically just one trick in Wrecking Ball. This idea I'm about to talk about is really, 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 really fucking important for Wrecking Ball. It doesn't matter how good your mechanics are, it doesn't matter how good your rotations are, it doesn't matter, like, this is probably the most important thing about Wrecking Ball, and it's very, extremely easy to forget. So, the two things that I would recommend to you, number one is just going to be a general thing. This is going to be a general thing. Why do you queue? Asking yourself this question. I don't mean this as flame. Every time... Actually, I'll get into it later. Why you queue? And managing commitment. These are the two things that will probably skyrocket you to very, very, very high ranks. We're going to spend most of our time talking about this bottom one, managing commitment. So I'm going to go over this top one really quickly. Why do you queue? This is it's a very, very common practice that I've found a lot of success in myself, as well as every player or most players that I give it to basically aid in the process of improvement and winning and literally like everything. Your general enjoyment of Overwatch is enhanced by, before you hit the Q button, asking yourself, why am I queuing? What am I trying to get out of my experience? If you can answer why you are queuing, then you can set expectations for yourself. You can set general sort of like trend lines, guidelines of either a foundation of your improvement, or you can manage your tilt a little, like, significantly easier off of like asking yourself, why are you queuing? If you are queuing because you want to improve, then every sort of like game loss is a source of a potential improvement. And you can be thinking, okay, well then what did I want there? How could I have won? If you don't know what you need to work on and you're trying to figure that out through your queue sessions, that's fine. Your goal is to figure out what you need to work on. So you just play to your best of your ability. You form ideas, you execute those ideas, and then you reflect on it later. You're trying to aid in your reflection process so you can get better queues later and start your improvement. If you know what you need to work on, then you're queuing up for that. It doesn't matter, like, you can get into the mindset of like, okay, even if I lost that game, how well did I do my job? How well did I improve or sort of focus on my goal? If you did it well, awesome. If you didn't, feel a little bit frustrated. It sucks if you weren't able to focus on what you want to focus on later. This can also apply for just maximizing your enjoyment of the game. There are a lot of times where I'll say, I'm queuing up because I'm fucking bored. I'm bored, and I just kind of want to see flashing colors on my screen. I just want to play some Overwatch. No real goal in mind. So then as soon as I start realizing, like, man, I'm not really having fun. I'd rather do something else. I just get off. As simple as that. I just leave. I just don't queue up another one because if I'm not having fun playing Overwatch, because when I'm bored, then I just don't do anything. I draw random arrows. I'm not trying to point towards you or suggest anything. I just draw whenever I'm battling. Answering this question every time you queue up should bolster your improvement. It should help with any sort of tilt that you might manage or experience in your games, as well as keep you focused on whatever your goals are. There are some times where, and it can also just help influence like your decision making. I'm like, there are some times I almost never join team chat. I never join voice chat. I usually have text chats turned off. But sometimes if my goal, the reason why I'm queuing is saying I'm having a couple drinks, I want to have some fun with my friends. Fuck it. I'm in team chat. I'm trying to make some friends. I'm trying to just have fun with the Overwatch community, or I might get into a 1v1 lobby with some Masters player. Who knows? Like, that's okay. But if I'm trying to focus on my improvement, then I can immediately say, okay, voice chat's not needed for improvement. Text chat isn't needed for my improvement. If that's what I want, if what I want to do is just improve at this specific thing, I can cut out all of the other factors. But if I'm just trying to have some fun with some friends, fuck it. I'm in a 1v1 arena with like some ranked random. So answering that should help with your sort of approach. It can also just be to win. You can just queue up to win. And that way your like counter swapping is going to be a lot more like it's going to feel a lot better if you think like, okay, if I want to win, I can't win on the hero that I'm currently on. I just really want to win this game, then I can just counter swap and I'll win and I'll accomplish my goal. That's why I wanted to queue up in the first place. And it's much easier to establish like when you would need to like sort of get off the game, when you would want, or and what you want to do if you just answer the question, why am I queuing, every time you hit the Q button. Very good habit to get into. Now, hold on, let me take a big gulp of water, because I have a lot to say about Wrecking Ball. I like this hero a lot. The big topic. Managing commitment. On Wrecking Ball, managing commitment is your essential, like that is the core of Wrecking Ball. That is everything that you need to be good at as Wrecking Ball to some degree. Let me give a little bit of backstory or history and general explanation, my personal views of Wrecking Ball as a hero. It's one of my favorites, one of my babies. I love Wrecking Ball. Wrecking Ball, compared to the rest of the tank roster, has by far, it is not even really fucking close, the weakest numbers in the game. If you try to raw stat check any other tank by just shooting your gun, they shoot their guns at you, you are going to lose that 9 times out of like 10 on Wrecking Ball. It really sucks. You could have godlike tracking, you could have the best aim in the world. If a Zarya is high charge, you're donezo. Even if they're like mid charge, you're donezo. You just can't win it consistently. You can't win the stat trades consistently. Wrecking Ball's numbers suck. They have a lot of HP. That's all they got really. Their weapon, their guns don't do shit. Their roll through can do shit, but they're not going to be able to win much stat trades. So where's Wrecking Ball's value? If they suck at frontlining and they're never able to win stat trades, where are they good at? I know it's a rhetorical question, and a lot of people already know the answer, but it's the mobility of Wrecking Ball. Wrecking Ball's mobility is what makes them so incredibly strong. I know this is going to be a hyperbole just because I might upload this to YouTube. Wrecking Ball cannot win frontline, cannot win raw number trades very often. So their value comes from their mobility. What does mobility grant to a hero? Mobility grants options. It grants you the ability to pick your fights. A hero like Zarya, while once they get high charge, they have some of the highest damage in the game, they don't have that much mobility. They cannot choose where they can fight. But with Overwatch being an objective-based game, usually if you have really high numbers, you're going to have low mobility. So you're going to want to just sit on the point because eventually everybody's going to have to touch the point. And then you're going to be able to use your strength of numbers on that objective. You're able to take the fight to you because of your lack of mobility when you're on a ground tank hero. Wrecking Ball is the complete and utter opposite of that. You almost never want to be sort of fighting on, like committing in a sort of shootout on the point because your guns just do way less damage. But you can choose where you fight on the map constantly. You can be basically anywhere at any time on the map with good mechanics. What does this mean in terms of how to actually implement it into value, and how does this all correlate to managing commitment? I'm going to go through a little bit. I am going to go a few fight by fights in terms of managing commitment, or with the idea of managing commitment. Actually, maybe the new Junk City game is a little bit better. Yeah, it will be. You've actually unbound your left click just to work. W. Crazy, insane W. Legit. I was going to talk about that later. So, managing commitment and your use of mobility is very important for a few reasons. You are a skirmisher. Wrecking Ball, with their high mobility, low numbers, they're very rarely going to win any particular fight on a map, but they can be involved in a trillion, billion, million different fights all at once. Your big issue here, Frank, throughout this entire, or most of this VOD, has been you would commit to fights way more than you should. This is a perfect example, and there's going to be a lot more coming up here, where you are committing to this fight, you get a boop on the queen, you force out their shout, but now you are getting shot at by their queen, their Cassidy, and you are never, ever, ever going to win the stat trade. You are forced to use your shields basically instantly because you pull out your guns and you commit to this fight. There's a very important topic or idea that I think a lot of Wrecking Ball players should, I believe in, and I think that could be very, very handy for a lot of Wrecking Ball players. My personal rule for myself is if there are more people, if there are more people shooting me, in a fight, in a committed, like, not even like a full team fight, I'm talking just like a little skirmish. If there are more people shooting me than I have teammates shooting the enemy, it is a bad fight for Wrecking Ball because you are not going to be able to overcome the number difference. You're not going to be able to overcome any sort of like big disadvantage through Wrecking Ball's raw numbers because you just don't have any. You just straight up don't have any. So if there are more people shooting me than I have teammates shooting them, it is a bad fight and I should go somewhere else. And that involves squishies, that involves like supports, DPS, anything. If they have two people shooting me, but I'm the only one shooting back, I'm usually out of there. If there are like, if I have my Tracer and me shooting like two people, maybe I might stay. But as soon as another person or a third person gets added to the enemy team, and then now it's just me and my Tracer versus 3 on the enemy team, I'm out of there. It's a bad fight for me. I'm not going to win that. That is a commitment play. Anytime that you have your guns out you are committing in some way because you are not getting any new information on the map. You are not actively moving to a location that will better your next hit. Pulling your guns out is committing to somewhere. It to some degree. Sometimes you're going to be able to poke people from like across the map, and that's fine. But generally, your guns will be a commitment of some sort where there is going to be a ton of opportunity cost for literally every single time that you take out your guns, because Wrecking Ball is just so fucking fast. Every time you pull out your guns, because Wrecking Ball is so fast, taking a second to shoot means that you could have taken that second to cross the entire like Atlantic Ocean. The opportunity cost of shooting is very, very, very high, and it is a commitment. As you see here on this engage, you poke out the Moira a little bit. As soon as somebody else starts looking, you get out. That's awesome. You start shooting the Junker Queen, and you could have taken that moment of getting like a few pellets on the Junker Queen to be all the way here by now. You could be here or here, in which their Cassidy already used their Hinder, their Queen basically already used their knife. You could get a 3-man roll through in that little time, or you could have set up for the 3-man roll through in the time that you took to shoot the Queen a little bit. That's exactly what I mean by commitment management. There are going to be times on Wrecking Ball when you have crazy advantages. When you identify crazy advantages on the field that you want to capitalize on, then you commit. That's when you use your slam. That's when you use your guns. That's when you actually commit to a fight. But until then, have commitment issues. Wrecking Ball players have commitment issues. Really, really good Wrecking Ball players, they don't fucking commit to fights, and it's for a very good reason. The heroes are the players who get up to Champ 2, Champ 3, Champ 1 on Wrecking Ball, Golden Pants, Junbin, you'll see it kind of everywhere. They only commit to fights where they have some sort of big advantage, because Wrecking Ball as a hero is not a hero that can really force a disadvantaged fight. You will almost always lose a disadvantaged fight as Wrecking Ball, but you can use your mobility to create advantages across the map that then you can capitalize on. So I'm going to go through a few examples of what I mean by this, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what a commitment really looks like. So now you use your shields because you fought the Junker Queen a little bit earlier, and despite you getting this is a really good roll through to get, but you used your shields and most of your HP on that sort of commitment on the Junker Queen earlier. So now when you go for this little roll through, you don't have enough HP to really sustain. As well as spin to win it. All right, there's a lot of ways to commit. What I mean by commitment in general is just sort of staying in one location at one time. Spinning to win is a commitment. Sometimes you cannot spin to win if there are too many people looking at you. Spinning to win is a commitment. Specific roll throughs are a commitment. If there's too much open space, generally you want to be in and out of people's LOS as much as possible as Wrecking Ball. But because you committed a little bit too much to that Junker Queen fight a little bit too early, you did not have the HP to go for your next roll through, and you ended up dying a little bit earlier. So this, fucking amazing. Oh, ridiculously good. Oh my god, this play is fucking sick. Okay, hold on. Let me break this down for a little bit. So you stage through this bottom area, awesome sauce. You shoot the Cassidy because he's all alone and you have multiple people there. That is a very, very, very advantaged fight. That is a great time to commit to that fight. Awesome. Super sick. This, you're holding onto your grapple. If you try to go for your slam right there on the Life Weaver, it was very likely you'd get knifed. You would get the Xi'an bike thrown into you. You would literally just blow up straight up. This would not be a good time to commit because there are more people looking at you than you have looking at them. So if you look for your slam or shooting your guns at all, then that really sucks. But through this grapple, you see the Xi'an commit bike onto your backline and the Junker Queen fall out of range and start committing onto your team, which allows you to then commit onto the Life Weaver, because if you take a look, nobody's looking at you. Absolutely nobody's looking at you. You forced this advantage by booping the Life Weaver into an uncomfortable position as the enemy team was making a play, And now you have a local advantage that you can capitalize on by committing to kill this Lifeweaver. Fucking amazing fight. Really, really, really good play. And the reason you get that kill, or almost get that kill, is because... This is also something I need to talk about. You almost get this kill because you force that advantage. They get the shout HP, which will cancel your slam damage. And then the Moira comes to peel. Sucks. Really, really sucks. But this is another reason why I have my general rule of if there are more people sort of shooting me or in my area than I have shooting them, I leave. This is exactly why. Even though you're not taking much damage at the moment, you are not finding this kill. You're not. Best ball player in the world is not finding this kill. As soon as the Moira gets in heal range, this Lifeweaver is immortal. So why I have this rule for myself as well, if there are more people healing or shooting, like the person who I'm trying to kill, then I have shooters available. I go somewhere else because Lifeweaver and Moira, if they've committed to this fight here, every other hero in the game is going to lack Wrecking Ball's mobility of just going somewhere else, fighting somewhere else. So now, as soon as both of their supports are committed in that location, you can go over here, potentially booping the Xion into a really, really bad space or getting more of your teammates active. You'll be rolling around here and booping this Junker Queen who is not going to be getting healed whatsoever. And it will take another like 2 to 3 seconds for the enemy supports to follow you because they straight up don't have the same mobility as you. This is why I have the personal rule for myself of if there are more people in the fight on the enemy team than I have for myself or for my team, I'm out of there. Because the opportunity cost of committing to something like this, while maybe even if you killed this Lifeweaver, this is basically an even fight over here as well. But you can use your mobility to make it not even, and they can't catch up straight up. They're not going to be able to catch up. So you commit to that Lifeweaver for quite some time, but that allows for the enemy team to eventually force quite a bit from your team. And now they are able to all stabilize and live. And now you've committed a lot of your sort of cooldowns and your ability to actually participate in the fight through all of this. And now you do not have nearly as much uptime as possible. And what I mean by uptime is, I know the topic is somewhat intuitive for some, I'm still going to break it down. Uptime, I basically equate to finding value or hits on the map. Generally, as Wrecking Ball, you really, really, really like a lot of uptime because you have mobility to have a lot of uptime in a lot of different places. And if you commit less, you have more uptime overall. You have more ways of finding value than everybody else. So if you're constantly going for little roll throughs like that, awesome, sick. Oh my god, that was swaggy. And then you get your grapple back, you look for another one, bang, bang, and you can still get out anytime you want. You force out, oh my god, that was so awesome. And then you take the 1v1 because there's nobody else around and you force out the Junker Queen through your grapple, and then you committed onto a fight after you forced the local advantage there. Bang! That's what you want to find on Ball. That's exactly what you want to be looking for consistently. Your big issue through most of these fights, and every time you see it, you can VOD like every single fight on both of these maps, on Hollywood and on this one, New Junk City. You lose the fights where you commit too early. Look at this. You get a roll through onto the Cassidy, but now that you've committed by taking out your guns, you're shooting, you are committing an HP trade here when they have 4 people looking at you and you have just big you looking at them. So now you get all of your armor chunks, you get your shields force, and you are no longer able to participate or have any uptime in the fight to create local advantages to capitalize on later. You committed way too much to this one specific roll through, this one specific fight, so now you are constantly on the back foot and you're not able to have any more impact through the rest of the fight. Every single fight that you lose here is because you commit a little bit too much to a fight. Like every single one. And then you swap it up, like towards the end of this map, you swap it up, and oh my god, you are schmoovin'. You immediately win back like 2 points or 1.5 points or whatever, based off of just like not committing basically like ever. You stop taking out your guns like 80% of the time, and you just immediately start winning because of it. Because you're not committing on shit. Slam. Slam is a commitment. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And there it is again. Where you are committing to a fight where you do not have a local advantage. There are still a lot of people who are capable of looking at you. You break out your guns when you could very easily just roll through. It's really shocking if even through things like Hinder or a Cassidy Hinder, it's a counter to Wrecking Ball. CC is a counter to Wrecking Ball because it can force you to commit in places that you don't want to. It can force you to take a fight in spaces that you don't want to. That's why heroes like Malga or something, they don't give a fuck about CC. A Cassie trying to hinder a Malga? Lol? Who cares? There's a Malga in your face. If you're in hinder range, you're in death range. If the cast is in death range. Like, heroes that have really good base numbers and like to take fights do not give a gaff about CC that much because they just have a baseline advantage in most of the fights that they would ever take. Wrecking Ball does not have that, and that's why CC is so insanely destructive to Wrecking Ball, is because if you get disrupted at all on your movement, if you commit a little bit too much to a spot that you don't want to commit to, you're done. You're just dead. Hinder is really bad for that. Chain, Lucio Boop, alright, Loki, small tangent. Lucio Boop is the most slept on Wrecking Ball counter in the entire game. Fuck Lucio Boop. Oh my god, there's like no outplay. It's so massive. The Lucio, like, it doesn't even need you on their screen, and it just like will always fuck you up and send you in really wacky ways. This is another example where you're committing to the Lifeweaver fight when there's a lot more other places that you could end up going. You see the Cassidy as well. It's just commitment. This is why it's very, very... Okay, and I'll explain a little bit briefly while we go through this point. Why it's easy to fall into this habit. Every Wrecking Ball player has spells of game, or like sort of periods of games, where they have this issue and they just cannot win. It's very easy because if you have like one good mechanic stay or something, or you have a game where nobody's really looking at you, you can start committing to every fight ever. If nobody's ever looking at you, fuck it. Shoot the fuck, just blow them up with your guns. You don't have to create local advantages if you're never being looked at, and just get your value for free, basically. What this and it largely depends on the comp matchups. Like if you're in a Wrecking Ball mirror, you're usually going to be wanting to like commit to fights a little bit more, because if you're in a comp, let's say it's like a Wrecking Ball like Kiri Lucio mirror or something. If you're in Wrecking Ball Kiri Lucio mirror, you're going to be wanting to commit a little bit more because nobody on this has absurd numbers. There's not going to be crazy amounts of numbers to really punish you. So you are going to be wanting to shoot your guns and commit to fights a little bit more because there are more winning fights on the map. Everybody has mobility, and when everybody's super, nobody is. So that means that you want to capitalize and commit harder to any advantages that you get, even if they're relatively small, in those sort of mirrors. So a Wrecking Ball player is very, very frequently experiences one of those sort of matchups or one of those lobbies where they can just kind of commit to whatever they want and find value off of it. But then they go into a game where they are not able to just kind of commit to any fight that they won. They're going to be losing most of the fights on the map, but they're still in that sort of, oh, I can just shoot my gun mindset. Wrecking Ball is an extremely difficult hero, because it's very hard to recognize, and you need to have the right game knowledge to actually identify what fights you can and cannot commit to. It's what makes Wrecking Ball just so insanely hard. The games before this were amazing. Your mechanics are on point, double boops and strafe and all. Yeah. Yeah, if you're having a good mechanic say as well, that another trap that Wrecking Ball players really fall into, and I had this a few days ago. I was trying to record a ball video. If you have really, really good mechanical days, that means that you are going to be faster at creating and capitalizing on local advantages. If you hit a good double boop, you've just brought somebody into your domain. You are hitting that tech through your mechanical skill creates a local advantage that you are able to capitalize on and commit to far more often. If you have a good mechanics day, that's also another huge downfall that Wrecking Ball players actually fall into, because if they don't have those same mechanical abilities in the next game, it's not the end of the world, but they are not able to commit as quickly as they were before because they're just not making the same openings for themselves. They're not able to do as much as they could. They're not able to make certain fights into winning ones because they don't have that same mechanical skill. But I want to emphasize this really, 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 really heavily. It is insanely important. If you are playing a mechanically demanding hero or a very, very high skill hero with its mechanics, it is very important to not beat yourself up. If you want to truly be good at the game, if you want to win and be a good player is the one who overcomes all of the factors going into the game and still is able to see the victory screen. Everybody has bad mechanical days. Everybody. Nobody is immune to them. There will be days where you are not able to do nearly as well as you can be doing mechanically. But you need to understand that and understand the value of your hero and navigate it to still find the victory screen in the end. It is important not to beat yourself up and instead be understanding or go through a process to think about why are your mechanics lacking that day. Maybe you're sitting in a different posture. Maybe your monitor is a little bit further away. Maybe you're on a different setup. Whatever. You didn't get sleep that night. You didn't eat. There are a ton of different factors that you could analyze, but the end goal of being a good player is to find the victory screen no matter what's going on, no matter what your teammates are doing, no matter what the enemy team is doing. You want to increase your win rate. So you cannot beat yourself up for things that your body does, because the human brain is very, very, very complex. We can't control every single facet of it all the time. So what we can do to still increase our win rates despite that is be kind to ourselves, to allow our brains to be clear enough to find the winning solution. It's why I really heavily I will continuously talk about the process of idea, execution, reflection. It is human nature. It is human sort of like your brain will naturally want to rush to the reflection of something. They want results. Your brain is seeking dopamine. You're seeking constant results that you can reflect on. But to really master this process and improve as a player, despite whatever circumstances you might come through, you cannot int the execution to skip to the reflection. If you have an idea, see it through to the end and then look back on it and say, okay, maybe I could have done this better. Maybe the idea wasn't that sound, whatever conclusions you come to, but making sure that you're actively stay executing to the best of your abilities is a really, really important thing IMO. And this topic of managing commitment is applicable for every single hero in the game. Wrecking Ball is the extremity of it because you have the weakest numbers in the tank pool, but the highest mobility. So you are going to lean into picking your fights far more often. But every single hero and the core of Overwatch is about getting an advantaged fight. So every hero can apply this idea. Every hero can apply this concept. It's just most applicable to Wrecking Ball because they don't have that strong numbers, but they have a lot of mobility. So they need to manage their commitment until they find something that they actually like. All right, I'm gonna talk. We've covered most of what managing commitment really means, but I'm going to go on a very brief tangent. Well, it will not be brief, actually. I want to make it very clear, Frank. You pick what you think will win you the game. Do what you believe in. I wholeheartedly believe in my approach to coaching. I really think that players who are trying to find the quote unquote right answer are always going to fall short of the players who are finding the answer that works for them. I want you to find the answer that works for you. I want to clarify that to like, and you can ignore any advice that I give. I approach coaching with general concepts and ideas that, and generally promoting or giving players ideas to spark and try out in their own games. But if it doesn't feel right, ignore anything that I say. If something doesn't feel good to any player that I give odds to, there are a trillion, billion, million ways to look at the game. Maybe my ideas won't fit the best in your brain, or maybe it might not work the best for you, and that's okay. That is perfectly a-okay. That's why I ask for players' goals, to try to make sure that I can cater whatever advice I give the best into each individual's brain. With that out of the way, my tangent starts. I despise the hang time perk. I'm going to use strong language here because my personal experience, but again, if you like the hang time perk, that is okay. I will never recommend somebody to pick it, but I'm going to explain why I never, ever, ever pick this perk. That perk is not an okay choice. If it works for somebody, it works for somebody. There is a specific, very, very, very specific way that I can see this perk being useful. Didn't understand that last point, finding the answer that works for you. Yes. So what I mean by that is my coaching primarily revolves around giving players different ideas. But there are a trillion ways of forming ideas in Overwatch. There are a lot of different things that you can be opinionated about, you can have ideas about, ways to approach the game in general. A very, very common sentiment in Overwatch right now that I really dislike is that there is almost always a quote-unquote correct perk choice. People will sort of argue and say like, oh, well, I actually did a little poll about this a bit ago. Like Kiriko's a really good example. A lot of people say like Foxtrot is the quote unquote like right perk. It's the correct perk. Man, speed boost for 30 seconds is all awesome. And other people say that Ready Step is the quote unquote correct perk. There's a lot of nuance that goes into perk choices, especially, but there's a very general baseline stigma in Overwatch that I really dislike of there being a quote unquote correct answer. This is a subjective game. What works for you and what you think is best, you should follow. It might be an idea that differs from the norm. It might be an idea that differs from your friends or your ranked teammates or other people in your elo or higher elo or lower elo, whatever. If there is something that works for you or an idea that works for you, a perk choice is a really good thing to hone in on, then stick with that. Do what feels best for you. I fucking hate hang time. And why I hate hang time is because it ties exactly into what we were just describing. Hang time is a perk that allows you to wind up your pile driver longer, gaining air control and dealing up to 50% more damage. 50% more damage is a very, very enticing thing about WreckingBall. Love the hang time perk, but it's full commitment for sure. Yes, exactly. It is a very, very, very full committal perk where you are going to be taking more damage in the air. You are going to be like generally floating around for a lot longer, as well as you are putting an emphasis and putting some of your hero value into your slams. I'm not going to lie. There are games where I probably slam like 3 or 4 times total. But I still just turbo carry those games through roll-throughs and just sort of 1v1s alone. Hang time in and of itself is not a bad perk. Back when it was one of the two, like before multi-ball and adaptive barrier got added, it was actually probably one of the best perks. It was probably the better perk choice in most scenarios. I forgot what the alternative was, but it was just straight up the better perk choice because dealing 50% more damage is fucking insane. It's a lot of damage on your slams. Why I will never pick this perk and why I've thought about it so much is just solely and completely the opportunity cost of adaptive barrier. What adaptive barrier does is it allows you to go for far more plays. You have insane amounts of options every time you have adaptive barrier up that become not committal. There are some instances, actually I'll talk about it a little bit here. Let's look at the last fight of this map. This slam here. Now it is a it's a commitment. It's very, very committal. Your team isn't really like there, so it's going to end up kind of biting you. I'm not too worried about that. We covered commitment management like through the rest of this VOD. I'm using this as an example to showcase exactly why I think that the shield cost or the opportunity cost of the shield perk is just fucking absurd. With the shield perk, you can slam this. It's insane. You can straight up slam this. You walk up, you proc your shields, you hit your slam button, you slam all of them, and then you just drop down to this low ground. And nobody's going to be able to really chase you. Sure, you might take some damage after your bubble pops, but you would just be able to live for the most part. But both the hinder hits you and then the knife hits you right afterwards because you don't have your shield perk. Which will keep you committed in this spot for eons, while you would be able to block the hinder and get out of range of the knife before they even got the chance to look at you, or throw the knife at you after that slam. What shield perk does is it opens up a ton of options all across the map through a ton of different compositions and matchups and locations. You have so I can't even describe how many more options there are to go for hits or pressure or just general uptime with the shield perk compared to hang time. Now, hang time is not bad in a vacuum. It is just really, really, really unfortunate that everything that Wrecking Ball struggles with, literally everything, where you'll have these amazing ball players, and like I described earlier, top, like I would go from 4,500 down to 3,600 basically daily because I would just forget about my commitment stuff. It's stayed true through Overwatch 1, through Overwatch 2. Wrecking Ball just needs good commitment management, and shield perk lets you not commit to a gazillion more hits. Hits that would be committal are no longer committal with the shield perk in a trillion, million, billion different matchups. And then there are some instances where you will be in a matchup where you don't need the shield perk. There are no CCs on the enemy team that would stop you or keep you committed into a roll through or a slam or anything like that. You don't have to deal with them. So initially, when these two perk choices came out, I would look at the matchup and go, huh, well, if they have like a Reinhardt, Sojourn, oh, I even fucking know, bro. What's another DPS? Hanzo, Lifeweaver, Baptiste. Literally no CC here aside from Reinhardt Pin. No. Oh, I guess Lucio, but... Oh, Lifeweaver. That's a Lifeweaver. That's not Lucio. They have nothing, so I would go, alright, I'm gonna go the hang time perk. I don't need it. And then over and over and over again, I would pick the hang time perk, and then bang, immediately Mizuki, Junker Queen, Cassidy, they would just go a trillion CCs, but I'd be locked into the hang time perk, so now all of the options that I could even have to roll through the enemy team because they just swapped their heroes really quickly. I can't do shit now. Straight up, I'm just forced to swap off ball in a lot of instances if it's more narrow maps because I just don't have the shield perk and then they just counter swap after I pick hang time. It sucks. It sucks dick. So I almost always go adaptive barrier, even if hang time could get value in the specific moment that I'm in. The opportunity cost of barrier is just so insane, and it covers all of Wrecking Ball's bases. This is one of the few perks in the game that I feel very strongly picking 100% of the time is almost never bad. But a lot of perks in the game, there's a lot of nuance, there's a lot of intricacies to it. Wrecking Ball shield perk is just unfortunately the best addition to Wrecking Ball's kit in terms of what kind of value he can get because it enables every single thing that Wrecking Ball could ever want to do. So that's why I get adaptive barrier. That's why I never choose hang time. But again, if there are some lines in the game that I cannot see. I cannot see everything. I do not know everything. I know a lot about this game, but I don't know everything, especially for what works for each individual player. If adaptive barrier feels really awkward to use for a player, and you can never, no matter how hard you try, you just can't find value with it, go hang time. That's fine. If that's what's going to win you games, if that's what's going to find you success, do that. Use that. I just can't personally see the line. All right, let me, I think that wraps up generally what I wanted to cover. So it's, what are you queuing for? What are you queuing for? And commitment management. Okay, I hope those two topics or those two concepts were like digestible. I'm sorry I went on a little bit of a tangent at the end. I just have a lot to say about Wrecking Ball. Two things. One of them is going to be familiar for those who have been around for the past few VODs. Identifying hero. Whoopsies. Hero value. And commitment management. Bro, why does it take so long to draw, like, outwards? Okay. So stay on this for a little bit. These are going to be the two things I'm going to cover in this specific VOD review. Identifying hero value as well as commitment management. Primarily, gameplay stuff is going to focus on commitment management, but these two ideas are going to flow right into each other. So I'm going to start with identifying hero value. I did a VOD review a while ago for a Bronze Brigida player to sort of how to spark ideas, how to analyze your kit, and how to sort of dissect what your hero is able to provide. Everyone has an intuitive understanding of what their hero is able to do, but to hone it further, you can actually be taking a look and sort of taking apart each hero's kit and how it compares to the rest of the cast. So with Soldier 76, you are going to be able to... I hate how you can't see the numbers, bro. I also wish it could just show you like the raw damage per 10. Or at least like hit scan heroes. Soldier, they're going to have 250 health. They're not going to be super chunky. They're not going to be able to walk faster than anyone base or like without using their sprint. They have their healing reduction, their damage, their actual like heavy pulse rifle. It's not going to be absurd. It's no Bastion in form, but it's also not going to be something that the enemy team can exactly ignore. Attack visor, whatever. Biotic field, you're going to be able to put down a biotic field that heals you and your allies. So that means that if there is another source of healing in the game, which is fairly rare, primarily only being from supports, that will enable your self-healing quite a bit. That will enable your self-sustain, meaning that if there's another source of healing on the map, it is less unique. You are reliant less on that specific source of value because you have your own source of healing. Helix rockets are going to be a burst of damage, doing 120 on a direct hit, combined with the 19 base or whatever, however much damage you can do in a short burst with your heavy pulse rifle as well. You're going to have a lot of burst damage, and then the core of Soldier's Kit probably is going to be the sprint. Now, what does all of this mean? There are a lot of ways that you can break down kits, but you ideally or generally want to compare one hero's kit to the rest of the cast, the rest of the game. So if Soldier is not able to deal that much damage, they're not able to really heal themselves as much as like something like a Tracer would, or sustain themselves as much as a Tracer would. They won't be able to burst people as much as like a Widowmaker or something. Where's their value? Primarily, it is just going to be the combination of all of these that are it's going to let you find your value as Soldier 76. So what I'm getting at here is how to determine your playstyle in a matchup. If you are able to play for your actual Helix gun and you are able to, like your team just has straight up better numbers than them, you don't necessarily need a bunch of angles or anything like that. You can just shoot your gun down main. You don't need to deal with all of these like extra fancy smanchy like abilities or whatnot. With your Helix rocket, with your biotic field, with your sprint, you're going to be able, you can determine a little bit on playing a bit more of a bursty playstyle. Primarily, your sprint is a very, very unique ability when it compared to the rest of the DPS cast, where nobody has this sort of long range pressure and that level of consistent mobility. Sojourn Slide is tied to a cooldown, a rather longer cooldown, 7 seconds. Soldier is able to do this basically all the time. With a 0.3 second cooldown, you can start sprinting everywhere all at once all the time. You have more mobility as Soldier. Now, that might be the first link as to why I'm tying in to commitment management. But when you have more mobility as a hero, generally the trend line to make a balanced hero, and the Blizzard devs know this very well, if you have a very highly mobile hero, you need to make sure that they don't have that like crazy amounts of numbers. You can't let them win every fight and take any fight that they want, because then that would just be insanely busted. But if you give somebody a hero mobility, you take away some of their damage, it still allows them to pick the fights that they really want to fight. So you have the option with your mobility to maximize the value out of your kit. Primarily, that's going to be a lot of your value and kill potential is going to come from your Helix rockets, as well as just your self-sustain, not needing to kite back to your team. So with all of that said, dissecting Soldier's Kit, and you can do this for any specific hero. I have a video made about it. Actually, I feel pretty good about that video. I'll put it in both the chats really quickly. Un momento, it'll literally take like 1 second. Where is it? There it is. I go into a lot of detail in this specific video from a previous coaching stream where I talk a lot about how to break down a hero's kit, how to form ideas based off of a hero's kit. And now that you have, or once you have an idea that you can play off of, you're able to actually start going through the process of idea, execution, and reflection. Blizzard World. So with that in mind, after we've broken down Soldier's Kit, that's going to be something really, really, really important for anyone who likes to swap around a lot, to sort of understand of how to find value on your specific kit. So now that we have an idea of what Soldier could be good at, let's see how much of the value of Soldier's Kit is actually being used here pretty consistently. So healing pad gets placed down, but it doesn't get that much healing because we immediately sort of walk out to it and then, or walk away from it and into this Echoes LOS. We commit to this fight because we think that we can find the kill onto the Echo. However, the Freya and the Lifeweaver and the Cat are all here. This is going to be a very, very hard fight to win or even just get a trade into. It's not a mechanical thing. It is just straight up a very hard fight to win. Soldier, there were a few things that were not utilized in Soldier's kit here. While the Helix rocket was made, like, you made good use of the Helix rocket and the pulse rifle, you did not use your sprint at all. You barely use your healing pad, so most of your value is just going to be kind of cooked there as you commit to this fight. And committing to fight super hard when a good chunk of your hero is more mobility based is a generally bad habit for mobility based heroes. So heroes like Soldier 76, with sprint being such a unique ability compared to a lot of the other hit scans, who aren't going to be able to have that much horizontal repositioning potential, it's going to be really, really important to make sure that you find your unique value out of it, because that will be how you maximize your strength as a hero. And you use it very, very well in some of these instances where you get into a very good spot, you end up dodging the jetpack cat ult and putting them into a very awkward spot, and now you recognize, hey, that's a fight I like. I'm going to pop my visor to make this fight even more more of a fight that I like, and then I'm going to win this local advantage that I created for myself based off of my momentum to dodge the cat ult. They are now completely split from the rest of their team. You are isolated here, and you are just able to beam them out of the sky with your ult. However, immediately after this, you go into a very, very committal position trying to get value out of this tactical visor. However, the Sigma is able to put a shield up. They're able to use their hands. The enemy team is able to turn around and shoot you. This is a very, very hard position to get value out of your tac visor, and you completely omit or sort of ignore the rest of the aspects of your kit. You don't use your healing pad until you're already dead. You don't use your sprint to find more favorable fights. You don't use your mobility to find the better fights that you'd want to take. You just commit to that one specific one. This is why Visor kind of fucking sucks as an ult. Visor is not a very, very good ultimate ability because there are a lot of ways to just stop a normal M1. And all it does is let your normal M1 be a little bit more lethal. With some of the perks, it can get a little bit more saucy, but generally, if you want a very TLDR answer of what this VOD review is about and what I mean by commitment management, is that you commit too much on fights as Soldier 76, where a lot of the value is going to be coming through bursts and utilizing your mobility to generally poke out the enemy backline. It's not that you're having bad timing on your flanks. It's not that you're having necessarily really rough like mechanics. None of that really is what I see in this game. It's that the flanks that you do get, you are committing way too much to. So this is really good. And then oh my god, look at this. Look at this shit. Immediately sprint to the high ground. You take this fight now that you have you use your mobility to get onto. This is a 1v1, straight up 1v1. This is where your mechanics are going to be able to shine, is once you create your opportunities for yourself for your mechanics to shine, this is where they actually will. No matter how much Kovacs you play though, if you are not giving yourself opportunities like this, then you're not going to be able to really get much value out of them. You need your core gameplay good before your mechanics can actually enhance them. But you utilize your sprint immediately. You utilize everything about Soldier's kit here amazingly. You use your Helix rocket, you burst them down, you take this short little bursty fight, you use your healing pad to heal back up, and then you use your sprint to get back into a lethal position in which the Baptiste has been gifted to you probably because I didn't look at a top down, but with the Ashe fighting you on this high ground, that means that they are not able to shoot out your Domina or your Echo or anything. Yeah, your Domina is able to walk up for free. They keep the Baptiste quite low. Yeah, Ashe turns around. Your team steps forward because of that. The Baptiste gets low because the Domina is not getting shot at by the Ashe whatsoever. So the BAP gets low, they walk up, and then you create this advantage, and you're able to capitalize on it because you utilize all of Soldier's kit phenomenally in this fight. It is awesome. It is super, super sick. But then afterwards, you end up going for a little bit more of these committal-based plays where you're fighting in areas that are not going to be easy to really get out of. But with your team pushing the advantage more and more and more, you're still able to sort of clean up. But I want to talk a little bit more about this idea later. Here. Perfect idea. Ramatra is a little bitch of a hero. I don't like Ramatra. I don't like Ramatra's kit specifically. Why I don't like Ramatra's kit is because slow is a fundamentally really good ability. If they throw slow at you, they kill a lot of your momentum and your mobility for a few seconds. You do this really well for a little bit, but end up struggling a bit later. This is a good timing for a flank. This is a good time to take a sort of fight against their Alari. You're getting your Helix rockets off, but you commit to this fight way too hard for way too long when you don't exactly have like your raw burst potential. There's a threat of the Ramatra constantly sort of walking you down through this entire time, and then they only decided now to actually go and fight you. Most of the value, like, you did damage here for sure, and you're peeling attention away from the Alari, but you're not exactly a super lethal threat unless you have like your Helix rocket. There's a good flank, there's a good timing, but you commit to it a little, like, far too long to actually find significant value. And as soon as the Ramatra's here, this is no longer a fight that you like. You hate this fight. I don't like Ramatra in a close range with their full CDs is not something that I usually like to really play into, since they just form on you, they pop their slow. All right, they didn't commit to that fight when they should have, but it's still a way that the enemy team is very easily able to punish you if they commit to their fights that are advantageous for them. But again, here we see it once more where you go for a very committal play on this angle, which ends up paying off actually. Their Onron took a fight that they definitely should not have. And their Mei makes it like an isolation chamber. They try to wall off your visor, but they end up just putting their Onron alone in a sort of cubby with you. But you end up shooting your gun a lot. And that makes it really hard to sort of start running away. You'll see if you watch any sort of like top or high ranked soldier players, they will shoot for a little bit, and as soon as people start looking at them, they're out of there. They're gone. Bye-bye. See you later. Because they know that most of the value that they can get from their kit is the ability to provide that hit scan pressure consistently by living, using their momentum to take good longer or mid-range fights, and then using their mobility to get out of those sticky situations or out of any bad fights that they don't like. Basically, anytime that there's more than two people looking at them, they're out of there. Or if there's a close range brawler hero, they're out of there. It's really useful to actually know what, or keep in mind what fights do you want to take. So anytime, I'd recommend this is a pretty good, your basis of off angles and timing is honestly pretty fine. What I'd recommend you to focus on for a little bit untruths is anytime there's a new hero that pops up onto your screen, ask yourself, do I like that fight? Do I like that fight? If the answer is no, fucking get out of there. Leave. You have the mobility to leave. You don't have to force disadvantaged fights. Mechanics help with forcing disadvantaged fights, because if you hit more shots, you're going to make more fights favorable for you. But if you have mobility, if you have the option to not fight a bad fight, don't fight it. Go somewhere else. Go do something else. Stabilize for a second, since you don't need healing either. You can just go stabilize, live for a second, and then you can come back and maybe there's a better fight for you. But in and of itself, you pulling that attention is value too. You being a presence, you going for your little cycles, just like a Wrecking Ball would, is value as Soldier 76. Since a lot of your actual kill potential is tied to your Helix rocket as well, it naturally flows super well with your little bursts. If there's a, like, as soon as like somebody is looking at you too much on angle or you don't like a fight, you're out of there. But usually by the time that you can get back into a fight or you can take another fight, you have your Helix rocket, you can go for it, and it's really, really awesome. So there are times like this where there's a Ramatra in an enclosed space in a very close quarters room and you have no help. This is not a fight I'd want to take, so instead of shooting at all here, just fucking hightail it out of there. Give yourself the best chances possible. Utilize your momentum to give yourself the most advantageous fight that you can. And sometimes you might be like a little bit on the fence about a fight, where let's say their Macho's sort of fighting up here, the Alari is like back here, the Mei's back here, and they're kind of looking at you, but you think, I don't mind this fight. I'm in my favorite range, they're kind of in their favorite range, so it's kind of even, but I can make this a favorable fight for me by putting down my healing pad here, and there's no chance of like the Ramatra walking me down or anything like that. So if you commit a little bit more to make the fight favorable for you, that's also a plan that you can do. But if you have no way to make the fight favorable for you, leave. That's okay too. That is value. Commitment management is what I'd recommend for you to focus on for Soldier 76 here. If this is a hero that you would want to continue grinding, then that is going to be very, very okay. But this concept applies to literally every single hero in the entire game. There are going to be fights that everybody has to take at some point. A lot of the time with supports, you don't like to take fights because your job is, or your unique value is going to be healing. But for DPS and tank, you are going to need to fight. You are going to be wanting to look for favorable fights. And if you cannot find them, if you have mobility, you can leave. If you are... But if you don't have mobility, then you just kind of got to fight it sometimes. But with Soldier, you have your mobility. Generally, how the game is designed and how it's made to function to make sure that heroes aren't over, like, super broken, is the more mobility you have, the less numbers you'll have. So your mobility will allow you to pick better fights, and then the more numbers you have are going to allow you to... the more numbers you have are just going to allow you to have better fights overall, of course, like across the game. But those are the two things that I'd recommend for you and Truth to really focus on, is identify hero value. Like, what is your hero actually good at? And like fight commitments, or commitment management is how I described it before. Bang. I see, because it's literally same as Ball, but playing as middle-aged man with a rifle on the legs. Yes, that's what. Okay, Eevee babble time. It's the end of this VOD, so it means I get to babble about the VOD. Overwatch is so fucking cool because there are a gazillion translatable concepts exactly like this across the entire hero pool, across different maps. Different heroes will find value in similar ways because they have overlapping sort of like tools. Wrecking Ball goes fast by default. Soldier goes fast while sprinting. You're going to be able to apply the same concept through those two ideas. And it's super, super sick. And why Overwatch is such a cool game is because there are a gazillion of these concepts that you can apply. And they are everything about this game. Literally everything about this game you can find through just thinking up ideas from your games, from executing anything that you thought of in the moment, execution, and then anytime you're reflecting on something, you can come up with the concepts. You can land on the concepts that I'm talking about in all of the VODs and all the things that are stored in my head, because I've just done a shit ton of studying, I've done a shit ton of experimenting. Everybody can come to these conclusions, and the reasons why it feels like a lot of sort of like top 500 grandmaster players with a bunch of different paths and journeys to get up to those ranks come to the same conclusions is because they've gone through this process consciously or subconsciously to get to the same ideas, to get to the general same concepts that are going to be applicable across a lot of different things. Sometimes they're going to have their little quirks. People are going to view things a little bit differently, and that's what makes Overwatch so fucking special. And to top it all off, they're translatable to other things as well. If you ever notice when a new game comes out, like a brand new like hero shooter game or even just like FPS game, the first players, like when a new player base is actually forming, at the very first season, the start of the leaderboard is almost always Overwatch players, because Overwatch has a trillion of these different concepts, so that no matter what game ends up coming out, you're able to use a lot of these concepts that you learn in Overwatch because of its diverse hero pool and its diverse cast and its general like macro depth and micro depth to apply them to other games as well. I can talk about swing hygiene for hours, but that's something that really applies to like CS and Valorant. Because if your swings aren't good in those games, then you're never ever going to win aim duels, no matter like how good your aim actually is. Your swings need to be really good, and it's a concept that's less needed in Overwatch, but it's still something that's very important to find value for specific heroes like Juno. Juno, your swing hygiene, your swing timing is really important, and it's super sick. So, I love Overwatch. I think this game is sick, and I got really excited when I was watching this VOD because I realized that it's the exact same topic as Ball, but it is generally what I personally think is the issue or the thing that Untruths could focus on here to improve their soldier gameplay the best. I fucking love Overwatch, man. Alright, bang. You just take all things with the hopes of making your team die. Look at me long enough for your team to walk forward, but if you commit too long, your tank will not take the space. Yes, you can't rely... Okay, this is a little bit abstract. This is something that is not necessarily proven. It's just my personal approach to more mobility-based heroes. I don't talk in ranked. I don't talk in voice chat. I don't talk in team chat. I don't communicate with my team basically whatsoever. So how do I get value on heroes that enable my team through mobility like WreckingBall or Soldier? I provide a lot of options for my team to capitalize on. So no matter what players I end up playing with, if I have a trillion million uptime as WreckingBall and I'm just constantly giving them opportunities to step onto the hits that I'm making at some point, and I'm able to react to whatever my team is doing based off of me getting a trillion hits, then no matter who's on my team, I'm able to sync up with them, because then they will be able to go at their own timing. I am maximizing each of my individual players' strengths, even if I'm not necessarily syncing up with them, which is really fun and awesome. And I get to just basically play my own game. I get to completely play my own game. And it's so much fun. It's just genuinely so much fun. That's why I actually get a little bit annoyed in ranked when people... Like, I play worse in VC. I straight up play worse when people are yelling in my ear telling me what to do, because I like my formula, I like my systems, and I'm very easily influenced by others. Especially in moment to moment or execution of ideas. That's why I only calm in team play, and while I'm not bad at calming, I don't do it in ranks because it's just genuinely less valuable for me, rather like compared to just sitting outside of VC on my own. I just don't need it in ranked. But I still want to provide as much for my team, and I get a little bit annoyed when they're constantly trying to sync up with me and whatever I'm doing, when I really just want everybody in my rank games, I want them to find as much individual value as possible. That's all I want. I don't, like, if you think that you're really good at identifying when you can follow up with me, awesome, fine, that's whatever. But when you are limiting yourself and your potential value as a player to what your ranked randoms are doing, that ideology, I personally believe, is something that will kill your win rates. If you are limiting your skill to the factors of who you get on your team, you are not going to be able to get above a 60% win rate in almost any rank. While, like, theoretically, and it's been proven by a lot of really fucking amazing players, you can get up to like 70-80% win rates pretty damn consistently, even in like high champ pro lobbies. But you need to make sure that you can identify what is the most valuable in the moment, which genuinely or generally is going to be your individual skill, since you are the only consistent factor in every single one of your games. You cannot rely on your teammates, can't rely on what the enemy team is going to do. In my personal opinion, my approach to rank is just do it. Do your game. Play your game. That's my personal philosophy. I know a lot of people play Overwatch for the social aspect, and that is perfectly fine. If you enjoy the game because you get to sync up with your teammates and get to meet new and cool people and share ideas together on how you can win the game, that is perfectly fine. That is awesome. Do that. Do what makes you happy. I personally believe for like improvement wise, seek your own individual value. That's my theory. Bang, babble over.